Dear grade 11 online students, how are you again? Today we are going to do part 1, the book Thief, part 1, analysis, the analysis of the prologue and part 1, with death as the unconventional omniscient narrator. An omniscient narrator, as you know, is the narrator who knows everything about the characters he is telling us about. Omniscient narrator, death, okay, of the book Thief. The novel immediately establishes that the story will mix elements of fantasy with historical facts. In the novel or in the story, there is fantasy and facts at the same time. It's a mixture rather than being stereotypically grim or creepy. Death, because when we talk about death and when death tells us about something, you imagine that it is grim or dull or boring, but we have some fantasy, like the way Rosa, for example, treats her husband, Rudy, and what strange stuff he does, the way he treats the girl and her colleagues at school, and how they keep laughing at her, the way Hitler is represented in the story, and so on. Death represents himself or presents himself as a sensitive to color and light, and rather regretful about his unfortunate line of work. He says he can't take a holiday because who would do his job? Nobody to do Death's job. He has feelings for the souls he collects and the humans left behind. Even Death has feelings. The writer once say, even Death has feelings. That's better than Hitler and his men. Liesel in particular, Liesel Memminger, the child, has made such a strong impression on him that he can't forget the 3 times he saw her, as we said before in the summary. By foreshadowing the times he saw Liesel, you know, Death told us about the 3 times he saw Liesel at the beginning of the story. This is called foreshadowing. When you are told, or when you have something that hints to something that is going to happen later in the story or in the novel or in the play, this is called foreshadowing. Death sets up the structure of the narrative, organized around 3 major events in Liesel's life, and also creates a sense of inevitability or predestination. It's your fate. When you're destined or predestined to do something, it will happen. It will happen. For what follows? Although Death is presented as a singular, almost human narrator, he is all-knowing, omniscient, okay, and all-seeing, which will enable him to describe scene and emotions he wouldn't have knowledge of were he a more conventional narrator. So Death here is not a conventional narrator but an omniscient narrator, while at the same time giving him a distinct personality and point of view. Sometimes Death gives us some comments on the events or the incidents of the story. In contrast to Death, Liesel's understanding of her situation is limited to that of a 9-year-old girl. Accordingly, the reader may even at this early point understand more of what is happening than Liesel does. And we readers understand what is happening more than the main character of the story, Liesel Memminger. For example, Liesel is not sure what happened to her biological father, but because of the hints given in the text that he was a communist, and because of what we know of Hitler's policies in Germany during the early 1930s, it seems likely Liesel's father was sent to a concentration camp. He was arrested. This is just one example of the dramatic irony author Markus Zusak uses throughout the book Thief, where the reader has, this is called irony, dramatic irony. This is one type of irony. Dramatic irony is when the reader or the listener or the viewer knows something the character doesn't know. So, where the reader has a greater understanding of a situation than the characters often do. in large part because the reader has the benefit of seeing events from Death's nearly omniscient point of view. We benefit from Death's point of view. As a character, Liesel is precociously empathetic to the adults around her, though she tries to avoid dealing with her own complicated emotions. Of the adults she encounters, she is especially drawn to her foster father, Hans Huberman, who she immediately understands is worth a lot. In her opinion, he is valuable. She finds her foster mother, Rosa, more difficult to embrace. But she sees hence that Rosa is a more complicated and generous character than she initially seems. From inside, Rosa looks kind, but from outside she's grim and dull all the time. Rosa angrily tells the neighbors to mind their own businesses when Liesel arrives. When she was in the taxi and the girl didn't want to leave the taxi, remember? And the people gathered, she shouted at them angrily. But she also hugs Liesel, and Liesel finally takes a bath. About 14 days after her arrival, she agreed to have a bath, 2 weeks. Although Liesel has an initiative understanding of the people in her life, Liesel is less reflective about her own feelings and circumstance. She doesn't tell us about how she feels. The fact that she has nightmares about her dead brother shows that she is troubled by his death and the disappearance of her mother. But she rarely thinks about these occurrences during the day. You know, the girl's brother died on their way to their foster family, okay? And she misses her mother. She doesn't know where her father is. This is why she was in the habit of having nightmares every night. She prefers to repress her feelings, to bottle up her feelings, and tries to focus on other things instead. Clearly, these events are still too immediate and painful for her to feel she's ready to confront them, to face them. Although the early sections start dramatically with the death of Liesel's brother and her arrival in Malking, the majority of these chapters are devoted to introducing and developing the main characters in the book and creating a portrait of a typical German suburb. A suburb is a district or a street or two, an area. While some backstory is provided for each character, more significant is the foreshadowing of actions and themes that will be developed over the rest of the book. Rudi Steiner, the boy who is about 10 months older than Liesel, will develop a passionate crush on Liesel. He will develop a crush on her that will be a source of both strength and frustration for her. Hans will be a singularly Hans Huberman, her foster father, positive influence in Liesel's life. But his inability to go along with the regime will cause friction for him, will cause trouble for him. He can't go along with Hitler's regime. Rosa will be a more ambiguous character. Ambiguous means unclear or not clear, and will serve as a voice of caution and pragmatism in contrast to some of the more romantic and practical characters. She is pragmatic, she is practical. And Liesel will develop strength from finding her own voice. The early sections also introduce Germany as a country on the brink, on the edge of a world war. Again, there is a dramatic irony in that the reader knows the gravity, the danger of the political situation that's developing, whereas the characters in the novel have little sense of the destruction that awaits them. The characters' reactions to Hitler's policies range a great deal. Candy store owner Frau Diller. Frau Diller is an owner of a candy corner store, okay? Or what we say, or in English we can use the word kiosk. She has a kiosk at one of the corners of the streets. This woman supported Hitler and the Nazis wholeheartedly, enthusiastically, embraces Nazism. She is a Nazist herself, demanding everyone in her store give the requisite Heil Hitler. Before you enter her shop, you must Heil Hitler or salute Hitler as if you are saluting the flag. Okay? When you salute the flag in the morning, before they are able to shop there. If you don't Heil Hitler, you are not be served, or you'll not be served. Rudy's father, Alex Steiner's, displays a more passive acceptance of the political situation. Lastly, Hans Huberman subtly, cunningly, resists the new regime by showing a range of responses. Suzak establishes a theme he will elaborate on throughout the book, as characters forced to choose between openly resisting anti-Semitic and inhumane policies and protecting their own families and themselves, turn increasingly cruel or kind. Additionally, this section introduces the theme of the power of words, which is the central theme of the book. The theme of the power of words. You know, Hitler could control the German people with his powerful speeches, long speeches. Though Liesel begins the chapter unable to read and at the mercy of the incomprehensibility of the written word, by the end she is becoming a competent reader, a good reader, a very good reader. At the beginning she couldn't read at all, just letters, and at the end she was a good reader, a perfect reader, and beginning to grasp the power words wield, the power words give you. Liesel's relationship with language is contrasted with Hitler's ability to manipulate language to seize power and incite fear and paranoia in the populace, in the people. Throughout the book, Suzak, the writer, will highlight words and phrases that are significant to the story. They are highlighted, they are written in bold, and interrupt the narrative to translate German expressions Liesel hears or uses. Words, we will see, can be used for both liberation and imprisonment. You can say a word that liberates you from prison, and you can say another word that can imprison you or put you in prison. Thank you very much.